Welcome to the Mike Baue Show, where we talk with people who influence people. Hi, and welcome back to the newest episode of People Who Influence People. My name is Mike Baue. I'm your host, and I'm so glad you joined us. We started a new series called Influence, or really discussing the book Influence, The Psychology of Persuasion by Bob Cialdini. And I recently gave a talk at a local chamber of commerce, the Cottleville-Weldon Spring Chamber of Commerce in St. Charles County, Missouri. And wonderful chamber, wonderful people. I serve on the board there as well, and I love this group. This is a tremendously committed chamber of commerce. Anyway, I digress. I gave a talk about influence there where I talked about the 6 principles of influence. And of course, there are 7 now because Bob wrote another book. And unity has been added to the list. But today I'm just going over the second principle of influence, which is commitment/consistency. It's another of the cognitive shortcuts that we use when we make decisions. So commitment, consistency, it's the desire to be consistent with what we've said or done in the past. So once we've publicly committed to something or someone, we're a whole lot more likely to go through and actually deliver on that commitment. A Chicago restaurant owner had a problem with no-shows, and this is a story I pulled from the book. People who made table reservations but failed to show up or call. So he reduced the problem by first getting a small commitment from the people who booked the reservations. So he instructed his receptionist to stop saying, "Please call if you change your plans." And he told them to start saying, "Will you call us if you change your plans?" And of course, they would say yes. And the no-show rate dropped from 30% to 10% immediately. And why? It's because of this principle. They desire to be consistent with what they said. So they would call if they had to cancel. Now, of course, he had, I don't know in this research if he had 20% cancellations where they called. But if you have a no-show rate that's dropped, your business improves. It's interesting to talk about ways that we use commitment and consistency. For instance, how many of you listening ever wanted to lose weight, but you never told anybody? Because if you told somebody, guess what? You have to come through with it, right? And I've done that. I've had the desire to lose weight where, man, I got to lose 10 or 15 or whatever pounds, and I've lost as much as 30 pounds in the past. And that's a lot for a small 5'7" guy like me. But when you make that public announcement, especially on social media, when you make that commitment, man, you got to come through with it or you're going to lose face. So we fail to make that public declaration, and now we know why. It's because we are so much more likely to be consistent and committed to something that we've declared. Running a marathon. Have you ever publicly said, "I'm training for the 5K or the 10K or the marathon or the Ironman," and then you realize that your friends know. So if you don't do it, you're going to get in some trouble. You might have a goal, but maybe you don't tell anyone because you just don't want to come through with it. If you tell, you got to do it. So setting those goals, a great way to hold yourself accountable is, of course, to make an announcement. Tell your friends, tell your mom, tell your wife, tell your employees, your boss, and so on. But commitment and consistency can lead to foolish decisions too. There was one study noted in the book where people were asked to put this huge, ugly, big, wooden, drive carefully sign in the yard. And nobody really agreed. Like, very few. Like, who would agree to put this big, ugly wooden sign in your yard, drive carefully? We all want people to drive carefully, but very few agreed. But they found that if people agreed to put a small, like a 3-inch size drive carefully sticker in their home window, that's the compliance, the commitment. 2 weeks later, they come back, 4 times as many people put the ugly, big wooden sign in their yard because they've already made a declaration that I care about safe driving in my neighborhood. they've agreed to the sticker. So that commitment, we desire to be consistent with our declared commitments. So even so far as to put a big sign in their yard. So agreeing with that small request in the beginning made them feel an obligation to agree to that much larger, crazy request a couple weeks later. There are other things that, well, I would just tell you, dive into the commitment consistency principle. It has to do with marriages and relationships. So many people, I'm going to go with this a different way than I think some people might. I think one way that a lot of hosts might say commitment when it comes to marriage, meaning that like people would stay in marriages just because you made the commitment. I'm going to flip it on its lid because I like to do that and I like to break stuff. So I'm going to say it like this. When you're in a committed relationship and you're having those hard times, maybe you're not, I've been with my wife 23 years and it's the greatest thing in the world, but everybody knows that being married is hard sometimes and we're not happy with each other. But it is that commitment that brings us through sometimes when we're unhappy or when we have challenges. That commitment will get us through the hard times, and praise God that it does, because that commitment is the glue. I declared to you that forever and ever and ever I am yours and you are mine. And we're going to get through this and we're going to do the thing. So we made the commitment. She made the commitment. And we want to be consistent. So one of the things I want to tell you, so from an influence perspective, getting someone to give you that initial small commitment is paramount. But what about when you don't want to be influenced by that commitment? How do you get out of that cycle, that psychological and cognitive shortcut, and not be caught in its trap, in its grasp? Because we all do it. Well, how do you get out of it? Well, it's really, I found this out on I found this on a website called socialengineer.org. It's social-engineer.org. And it talks about the commitment and consistency principle. And it introduced a concept to me that I never heard of. It's called zero-based thinking. Many of you might know this. But zero-based thinking, you just ask yourself, knowing what I know now, would I do this? Would I get into this again? So from you're getting ready to make the commitment to put the big sign in the yard. Like, hold on, stop, back up. Had I never put that sticker in my window, would I put this sign in my yard? Knowing what I know now, would I make the decision to make this step, or to buy this thing, or to commit to this, to buy this timeshare, whatever it is? There are ways to do that. But anyway, I'm going to wrap this up. I can't wait to get to the further principles of influence. Next up, let me see what's next on my list. Looks like after commitment and consistency, we're going to talk about social proof. So guys, thank you for your time. God bless. And I'll talk to you very soon. Thank you so much for listening. We hope you liked the show. And if you did, please hit the like button and share it with your friends.